something you're passionate about doesn't necessarily need to become your career to be a fruit for you.
Yeah, whatever your mission field is. It could be video games. It could be the basketball court, the weight room, the football field. You name it. That's your mission field.
There's infinite number of ways to encounter people and to share your faith. I love that. I love that. So what do God, video games, and youth culture have in common? I don't know, but I'm Darnell Miller. I'm a producer here at Mac Studios, and I'm here joined by two people who have a little insight into that. On my right, we have Jonathan Blevins, Bearded Blevins. He's a father, streamer, and he's a disciple of Christ. And on my left, I have JB, who is with the Word on Fire Institute and is also getting a master's in pastoral studies. Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct.
All right, and that is awesome. And they know way more than I do on this subject. So video games have changed over the course of our lives, right? Our parents had limited access to them. We had way more. And our kids are having the most access. How has that affected just our relationship to video games and to digital media in general?
Yeah, I mean, video games they're a huge part of the culture right now. And really Fortnite has helped to put it in the culture at large lately. So if people don't know what Fortnite is, it's a battle royale style game, kind of like Hunger Games, where everybody drops in and is fighting until there's one last person standing. And there's dances you can do, and it really has like exploded into the rest of the world's culture. And it used to be frowned upon if an athlete would say that they were a gamer, or maybe they'd be made fun of. But now you've got athletes doing Fortnite dances in the end zone when they score touchdowns or when they score game-winning shots in basketball. So it's kind of everywhere now, and it fits into the culture in a much bigger way than it ever did before. And it's kind of shocking for people. I'm 34 years old. It's shocking for people who are my parents' age.
We want to see video games in a way that's not necessarily just Fortnite. So it's not just PC, not just console. It's your iPad, you're playing Candy Crush and you're swiping on the plane. That is also a video game. So either your 2-year-old is doing it or your grandma on the plane is doing it. And so video game is just a part of culture.
So they affect people in a broader sense than we tend to think, because I'll admit I didn't think of Candy Crush as a video game. So it affects everybody more than they realize.
Right.
And I'm sure there's net benefits and net positives in that. What are some of the benefits that you've seen in video games?
For me, I think that the way that it can bring people together is awesome for community. And back in the day when I was growing up and we had Halo was kind of the first game that like people would have LAN parties. And there were people were doing that with other games before Halo, but Halo, a lot of people played it. A lot of people had Xboxes, and they'd bring it over to their friends' houses and link everything up. And now they're playing, with 8 different people in the same game. And that was unheard of. That kind of revolutionized gaming for me when I was in my teens. And now with the internet, you can play with anyone from anywhere at any time. And so the bringing people together and allowing friendships to last if someone moves away, I think is an awesome part of what video games are doing for culture.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of that, during the pandemic, me, my brother, my cousin, and my brother-in-law, all different parts of the country, we hopped into Warzone, and that's how we caught up with each other every day. We'd hang out for 5-10 minutes, and then we'll drop into our battle royale, win, lose, whatever. We're just hanging out, and like whenever the kids go to bed, that's kind of all we did. Just to build community.
Yeah, and so the point wasn't necessarily the video game; it was having the opportunity to catch up with your friends and your family.
Yeah.
Okay,
exactly.
so it's kind of like a vehicle, and I know you talk about this in the way you use Twitch for your ministry. Video games aren't the core of what you're doing; they're the vehicle for what you're doing. Can you explain that just a little bit?
Yeah, so what we're doing when we're live on Twitch and we're playing, let's say Fortnite, for example, we're having a conversation with the community of people who are watching, and they're not there to watch us play necessarily. They're there because we're interacting with them, we're talking, we're being funny in the game, and we're actually like sometimes having really deep conversations. And I don't know if that's been your experience in the pandemic with your friends. Like you're all of a sudden you're fighting people, and you're talking about something really serious, and then afterwards you're like laughing about how the game ended. It's kind of weird, but it really works out and kind of gives something to do while you're having that community.
And I know you said you were a youth minister. Have you seen the students, the youth you're working with use video games in that same manner?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's one of my kids. He plays Forza, And so we were just talking about that and like how we talked about virtues and vices and like, should you drive like on the right side of the road? It's like in this like a kind of a dumb way, but in a very like meaningful and purposeful way of like what is good and what is bad. And like, where's that gray area that we operate in, especially in this like online virtual world.
In what ways do you see video games being kind of like the learning principles for that? And how do you see that transfer over from a video game space where it affects like, non-playable characters to like, an actual person who's on the other end of whatever receiving feedback?
Free Guy with
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 I've seen
Ryan
Free Guy.
Reynolds and like
Yeah.
the whole NPC thing. I think that's like one of the almost like best examples of how we've seen like gaming culture and just like normal culture come together, and we see just like this person who's a non-playable character like gain consciousness, and that's just like that brings in a whole bunch of like philosophical questions, and it's like we make questions about like what is community, like how are we making someone a star, things like that.
And I just think also in general, the one of the dangers of the internet in general, but gaming too, is you can be someone completely different online on your social media as an anonymous account as a gamer than you are in real life. And I think that's really dangerous. And one of the reasons that we started Little Flower Media was to encourage people to be themselves and to like be authentic in every aspect of their life and to actually be positive in all aspects of their life, including using media. And so that's fascinating to me, is that there's a lot of people out there who you might know who are great in person, and then who knows if they're a troll or not online.
Oh, that's so
right?
interesting.
So I want to really encourage people to like be themselves always in all aspects of their life.
Nice. And so you talked about Little Flower Media. That's the company that you started. Can you tell us a little bit more about what prompted the starting of that and what you guys are aiming to do?
Yeah, so it's actually funny because we were on God and Gaming which is a Word on Fire Institute podcast, of YouTube series, if you will. And as we were on that, in July, August, and doing that interview, I was working with my business partner, Matt Marcolini, and my other business partner, Matt McClure. The goal was to bring light into the darkness that is the internet, using different new media platforms like social media and Twitch and YouTube, podcasting, which we're starting to get into now. And it's been going really, really well. One of the main things we're really focusing on is Twitch, because it's so easy to have a community there where when you're live, people are talking to you live. You can throw a tweet out and have community on Twitter, and who knows when someone's going to see it and respond that you're trying to be in community with. But on Twitch, it's live and it's happening. And it's been great. We've 10x'd the number of people watching in the last few months from when we started, and the community is just growing, and it's more joyful than ever.
And that's awesome. That's beautiful. And God in Gaming is a show that you have on y'all's YouTube channel. Can you talk a little bit about what you guys are accomplishing with that and what the premise for the start was?
Yeah. So God in Gaming started with this idea and this the idea that like the transcendentals, the truth, the beauty, and the goodness can be found everywhere. Hence the name Transcendental. And one of those things is in like we've been talking about video game culture. You see Red Dead Redemption, Assassin's Creed, all of these kind of just these big games show up, and this is where these people are. Like John was saying, that you have a community there. You have people that are there, and we are seeing this beauty come out of it. And so God in Gaming came as an idea to bring Christ to the places that don't necessarily see Christ in the same way. And I think it like really connects with what Little Flower Media is doing.
And I think it's really cool that we have people of the faith who are exploring these ideas. But with that in mind, in what ways have you seen like the greater church, take on some new technology for positive change in their communities? Yeah,
I think you have a couple like software as a service things that are happening. So like these big software companies like Hallow that's coming up. And you see all these different like tech companies that are trying to get into the Catholic space or the Christian space as like one little bubble. And then you see ways like Flocknote who are just increasing communication around the people and around the congregants, and ways to get to the community that are not so necessarily the way that they've been doing it before via the bulletin or on the pulpit. So that's kind of where I've seen digital media kind of starting to flow. But we have leaps and bounds that we need to do so much more work to get to the point to where, compared to like secular organizations and secular communities.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and even other Christian communities, like the Catholic Church is always just a few steps behind when it comes to innovation, it seems. And so I'm kind of shocked that we're on the forefront of this when there have been, some Protestant streamers doing this and having like Twitch services, for years, and trying like to be in that space. So I'm with you. Like it's about time, and it's just the beginning of what we're going to kind of see happen here. I mean, God can do anything with these major platforms. And you talk about gaming in general. I mean, the amount of people that play, a lot of times there's a stereotype that it's like kids or young people. You brought up like if it's a 90-year-old playing Candy Crush or Solitaire, that's also a game. But the stats are crazy about the number of people who play. It's something like over 75% of men and women above the age of 35 are playing games. Actively, and not just Candy Crush and Solitaire, but actually like video games on
consoles or on
PC. So
yeah.
It's wild. And we look at a lot of our community on Twitch. It ranges from all different ages of people, from different backgrounds. Like some people are married in their mid 30s watching us at dinner, and it's like I tell my wife that, and she's like, "Wait, what? Why would they do that?" And I'm like, they think we're funny. I don't know. So it is wild the amount of people that you can reach using these platforms.
So I mean, technology is definitely like a powerful tool, but is there anything that we need to be wary of in our approach to using technology for things? Or is there anything that we need to kind of be like, not yet, or just be careful about how we approach?
For me, I think that with almost like with everything, there's balance. Like we are incarnational. We are supposed to be in relationship with one another often, and being online is a way to do that. But nothing is going to beat that face-to-face community of people. And so, if we can use these platforms well as tools to then lead people to the community that is online, but also to one with to be loving with their family and spending time with their friends that they are living around. They're loving their neighbors as well. I think that's a really good thing. A danger can be, people just falling into only ever identifying as the person who they are in the game or in their online communities or spheres. Those are some issues that I could see.
Okay.
Yeah, and just to second that, you see a lot of people who are just trying to kind of, either whether you call them the keyboard warriors or trying to be people who they're not in the world. And like you just said, it's the whole like be yourself all the time. And so you can see people who kind of fall into the trap of like, oh, I am this big mean person who's like Kratos, but even though he has like a great redemption story, or he's an angry person, you can really like mentalize and like come into that person. But like that is not you. And you are meant for relationship, you are meant for love. And luckily Kratos does experience that, spoiler alert. He does experience that, but you're just not the playable character that you are. You're so much more than that. That's why God incarnated into Jesus and not into an NPC.
Yeah. I love that both of you guys led with a call to authenticity as opposed to like fear, right? Like it was like, oh, you should be afraid of these things. It's like, no, you need to be who you are called to be in these spaces. I love that. That's fantastic. I feel like we don't hear that call to be ourselves often enough. So thank you for that. But with that in mind, I know more and more we're seeing people go who in our generation, like people wanted to grow up to be pop stars, or they wanted to be rappers, or, athletes. Now people want to grow up and they want to be streamers, they want to be YouTubers, they want to be professional video game players. What does that look like? And you guys, both of you guys have done a lot of ministry work. So what does that look like in your ministry work? And what advice would you offer to these kids growing up? Because it's just as difficult to do this, if not more difficult, than to grow up to be a professional athlete or a celebrity, right? There's work involved.
So not to sound like a broken record, but I think balance is huge. Like, so my little brother is Ninja, and he's one of the biggest streamers in the world, and one of the best video gamers in the world. And he was playing. He'll say this, that he was playing for too many hours in a day. Like there were moments during COVID, he just was admitting that he's playing like 17 or 18 hours of games a day. Now there are a lot of people the kids who see that and they're like, oh, I want to do that. If I did that, maybe then I can be, a famous streamer or a famous video gamer. And that's not healthy, as he's admitting. And so I think that's really important, is to have that balance and to take, as he says, the time out away from that kind of stuff and focus on like your whole life, your community, your family, your vocation, what God is calling you to. So I think you can have those dreams if that's what God wants you to do. And he has a specific call for everyone. But figuring that out and making sure that you're having balance, and then understanding that if God wants it to happen, it's going to happen. Yes, the hard work has to be put in, but there are athletes who are some of the best athletes in the world who didn't start playing their particular sport until high school, right? So you don't have to be a 7-year-old playing 12 hours of video games a day in order to do what God wants you to do. If he's gonna use you to do something cool, he's gonna do it if that's what you're called to.
The whole idea is like your vocation, wherever you're the most happiest, is kind of like the essence of what a vocation is, where God is calling you to do. And if that's video games, if that's being a chemical engineer, a doctor, or lawyer, businessman, whatever that is, like you're called to be the fullness of that. But you're also called to like be a Christian. And so in that, you should be evangelizing, whether it's like subtly, very like guerrilla evangelization, or it's like very out in the open, very blatant, have a divine mercy, Jesus, I trust in you on your wall or on your wallet or something like that. Yeah. So it really is just being the fullness of yourself wherever you are. And that's kind of like the note that we probably want to hit as we've been talking about this whole time.
Yeah, I like that. And I like when we were kind of talking before this conversation, you said something like, you said, that you're not the best video game player, but people aren't there to see you for the video games. You're there to serve a different purpose.
Yeah.
I think of like, I know I'm never going to be a professional basketball player. I'm 5'9" on a good day, right? But I can use basketball as a means to evangelize while I'm playing with people, encountering people on the court.
Yeah.
So it's like, what is like something you're passionate about doesn't necessarily need to become your career to be a fruit for you.
Yeah, whatever your mission field is. It could be video games, it could be the basketball court, the weight room, the football field, you name it. That's your mission field.
There's infinite number of ways to encounter people and to share your faith. I love that. So one of the things that I'm curious about, because I think like dead set middle millennial, right? And all these youngsters are coming up under me. They speak a different language, right? What are they like? What are they into? What kind of questions are they asking? You guys spend time with them. You guys know that, right? And I feel like I'm speaking for myself and like baby boomers and everybody older than me who's like, I don't understand these kids. But like, what are they like? What do they want? What are they looking for?
Yeah, I think both from literature and just experience, like they're looking to be loved. And I think that's like the bottom line, like knowing that God loves you, like hard stop, that he's there for you. He's always going to be there. You can throw a book at him, if you will, or you can yell at him, like God can take it. And the desire to be loved, to be heard, and to be listened to is probably what I've seen the most.
Yeah, 100%. And that desire, like you just said, like to belong, like is part of that, right? They want to belong to something. And so they're going to find something to belong to. And we have the opportunity to let them know that the church is what they should belong to, right? But they want the reason, and this is like have been happening forever. I want to belong to the team that I love. So I wear their jersey or whatever it is. But now it's like, oh, I'm part of this community on Twitch. So I want to belong there. So they're going to find something to go belong to, and we can give them the church, which there's nothing better to belong to for them, for their soul, to know that they're loved. And so that's huge. And it is a whole new language, but that desire to be known and loved and to belong is still there, like it is with all of us. And I think that's huge.
That is. And I think that's beautiful, right? It seems it's so simple, essentially, right? They just say it in a way that I'm not understanding they're asking at this point.
Yeah.
But what kind of, I know they're asking a lot of the big transcendental questions, right? Like the big whys in life, the big, like, why am I here? Why did God create us? Is there a God? All those types of questions. But, where are they turning to for answers?
So that's interesting you say that, because and to go back to your last question a little bit too, I encounter a lot of people who don't understand like watching someone play games or watching someone do anything on Twitch or YouTube. And I think like I kind of remind them, like, did you ever watch shows growing up? Did you watch TV shows? They'll say yes. It's like, imagine if you could talk to the people that were on those TV shows that you liked. And they're like, oh, that would be really cool. It's like, yeah, that's what's happening in these Twitch communities and on YouTube. And so who are they asking? They're asking they're asking people that they don't actually know in real life necessarily, and they're going to take their answer for like a lot. They're going to listen to what that person says. So they might belong to this one community on Twitch, and they're watching this person all the time, and they've never met this person. And this person might be a huge streamer who only ever sees them as a name, and they might say, "Hey, are you a Christian?" And that streamer might see that and just be like, "Oh yeah, no," and then boom, all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, me neither." You know, and so it's like they're asking anyone who will give them an answer, and that's again why I think it's so important for all of us as Catholics and Christians to be in those spaces, so that we can say, actually, like here's this is Jesus is real, and this is His church, and if you want true fulfillment and joy in life, then join. You know,
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think John says it best.
Yeah.
Period.
I mean, I think that's beautiful. There's a lot of responsibility in that, though. But I think, if we're leaders in church groups, if we're leaders in families, if we're leaders in our communities, like there is a level of responsibility that comes to that. And I mean, our faith is owed to people who came before us. So therefore, like the people that come after us, we owe them that same service of faith, right?
Yeah.
Of that giving of the faith and sharing of our knowledge and sharing of our love for Christ. So I like that you said that, like, like they take it for when they're asking questions and they're actually looking for answers, they take what they're hearing with a lot of weight. So that could be great for us.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And I mean, there's this whole group of unchurched individuals or like unreligious individuals. And I mean, yeah, they're looking for answers. They're looking for questions. They're looking for someone to, again, to listen to them. And so if we're that person that can hear them, then you already create that encounter. You already plant that seed. And one of the biggest things of being a catechist is you may not be the person that sees that fruit grow, but you're definitely going to be one of those people that are helping plant that seed. And there's going to be another person, whether it's you or John or someone that comes along and pushes that seed further and further until hopefully they become this big blossoming tree that does the same thing for the next person.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I have just a couple questions left. The first question I have is, what have you seen online that you think is beautiful, that is fruitful, that should translate offline to real life?
I think that this is kind of the opposite of what I said earlier about being anonymous. There is something good about being able to have a screen name. I mean, it's not your actual first and last name. Then there's a vulnerability that people feel comfortable with that they don't have in person, right? So someone might never go into a church and ask a priest or someone who working there, does God love me? But they, behind their screen name on a Twitch name or YouTube or whatever, they might type it and say, is God real? Does He love me? And they wouldn't otherwise do that. And I think that's good. It's good that they're willing to do that online. But I think that vulnerability is something we're really missing in person, of being able to go up to someone and asking a question that, and then looking at them in the eye and having them answer is something that I think is really, really important. But I like that people are able to be vulnerable online.
Yeah. And this, one of the things is not going to be to start another podcast, because I know jumping into the metaverse will definitely be one of those things. But I think having like this virtual reality where you can like build out what life could look like, but knowing that, again, we are incarnational people, so we can take these designs, these thoughts, this world, and then bring it back into this reality of where we are. And I know like people are starting to like imagine building out cathedrals in the metaverse. And like that is super cool to think about, or like creating sacred art in the metaverse. So like people can go there and they can see all of these great paintings without necessarily having the really long lines that are in the museum. So like that's a really cool thing to engage with right now.
So we talked about bringing something from online to the real life, but what are like some truths that we know like in our real lives in like here that we should take with us while we're online?
That's a good question, Darnell. I think of, when you ask me that, I think of the road to Emmaus, right, where Jesus is walking with two of his disciples, and they're walking in the wrong direction, and Jesus walks with them in the wrong direction, listens to their story, and then reveals himself in the breaking of the bread and reminds them of who he is, and then they go back and right, and hopefully are going to change the world, right? And I feel like that's huge. Like we have to just remember that truth of why we're here, right? Not to get caught up in numbers or success or things like that, and to remember why we're here, and to know that we're going to be encountering people in these platforms online playing games, even if you're not streaming, if you're just playing a random game and you're talking to some random person that you get matched up with in a lobby, like that's a person that you're encountering, and you have an opportunity to share, even just by being a joyful person, right? Like be ready to give your witness is wildly important, to always be ready to give your witness.
Yeah, and the same vein of is friendship. Whether it's the person that you talked to in the lobby once, or you decided that because you won this game of Fortnite or Warzone, y'all are going to run it back, and like you keep on playing together, and like you're building out this friendship, but it's being that joyful witness in that friendship and not necessarily stooping down to getting upset when you get a headshot or anything like that.
Awesome. I love that. So that beautiful idea of witness and encounter kind of encapsulates all. Well, I just want to thank both of you for sitting down and kind of touching on this topic with me. It's, you know, something that I need to learn more about personally, but also I think something that we all need to consider, because we are spending an increasing amount of time online in digital spaces, and knowing how to navigate that is only going to make us, you know, better witnesses for Christ and draw more people to him. So thank you. And thank you all to everybody's watching. If you enjoyed this conversation, you want to see more like this, I urge you to subscribe to our YouTube channel here, whether it's Mac Studios YouTube channel or the Word on Fire Institute YouTube channel. So click those subscribe buttons, please, and we'll see you in our next episode.